What happens when two of Hollywood's most adored figures sit down for what should have been an easy, cheerful chat, only for the conversation to twist into one of the most tense and awkward moments daytime TV has ever seen? Before we get into everything that took place, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below telling us what you think actually went down. Because whatever unfolded between Julia Roberts and Kelly Clarkson left the entire studio in stunned silence. The interview began exactly the way anyone would expect. Kelly welcomed Julia onto the show with her usual warm energy, and Julia settled comfortably into her seat with that well-known smile that has charmed audiences for years. The opening minutes were classic daytime television, simple conversation about Julia's newest project, a few easy laughs shared with the audience, and the type of relaxed dialogue both women could handle without thinking. Kelly leaned forward with genuine interest and said, "So Julia, you've been in this business for such a long time, and I've got to say, you've stayed unbelievably grounded through it all. What's your secret?" Julia laughed that familiar bright laugh and replied, "Well, Kelly, I think the trick is remembering that none of this lasts forever. Fame, success, all of it. You have to keep it in perspective." Kelly nodded eagerly. "I love that. I really do. A lot of people in our world forget that. They get caught up in the machine." "Exactly," Julia agreed, still relaxed. "The machine, like you said, can really pull you in if you allow it. I've always tried to keep my personal life personal, keep my family separate from it all." This is where the shift began, though most viewers at home wouldn't have noticed anything yet. Kelly's expression changed just slightly, a tiny flicker that was easy to miss. "That's interesting you mentioned that," she said, "because I wanted to ask you something. There's been lots of talk recently about celebrities and their responsibility to use their platforms for bigger causes. Do you think stars have an obligation to speak up?" Julia's smile tightened a little. "I think everyone has the right to decide how they use their voice, Kelly." "I don't think obligation is the right word." "But don't you think," Kelly pressed gently as she leaned forward, "that when you have the type of influence you have, choosing to stay quiet is also a choice in itself?" "I've always felt that if I have this platform, I should use it." The audience was still smiling, unaware that the air in the room was starting to shift. Julia adjusted her posture, her shoulders lifting slightly in a more guarded way. "I respect that about you, Kelly, truly. But there's a difference between using your platform and turning your whole life into some kind of public statement. Some of us prefer to let the work we do speak on its own." Kelly's eyes opened a bit wider. "I'm not sure I follow. Are you suggesting that people who speak up are turning their lives into political statements?" "I'm saying," Julia replied carefully, her voice pleasant but sharp around the edges, "that there are various ways to contribute to the world. Not everyone needs to share every opinion online or turn each interview into a speech." The tension was becoming clearer. Kelly leaned back slightly, her smile no longer the same soft one from earlier. "Julia, I hope you're not implying that I turn interviews into speeches. I just believe honest discussions about important topics are part of being real with the audience. And I think," Julia said, her tone noticeably sharper, "that being real doesn't require telling millions of people every single thought or detail of your life. Some things can remain personal. Some limits are important." Kelly laughed, but not her usual warm laugh, for this one had a hard edge. "Wow, okay. I'm honestly a bit surprised. I've always admired how you've handled your career, but it sounds like you're criticizing people who choose to be more open." "I'm not criticizing anyone," Julia insisted, though her tone contradicted her words. "I'm simply saying that this wave of oversharing and what feels like performative activism isn't for everyone. Some of us came from a different time in Hollywood." The audience had grown noticeably quiet. "A different era?" Kelly asked, a faint pink rising across her cheeks. "Julia, I'm not that much younger than you, and I don't think being open about who I am or what I believe is performative." "I never said you personally were being performative," Julia clarified again. "But the damage had already been done. I'm speaking about a trend, not you." "But you're making these comments on my show," Kelly said, her voice lifting just a touch, "so it's hard not to take them personally." Julia's jaw tightened. Kelly, I came here to talk about my new film, not debate how celebrities should behave. Well, you're the one who brought up keeping your life private and not turning everything into statements, Kelly replied. I'm just trying to understand what you meant. A long, heavy pause filled the air. Julia drew a breath. Look, I think we're misunderstanding one another. Are we? Kelly asked calmly, though her tone held firmness, because it seems like we simply have different approaches, and you've suggested that yours is somehow more respectable or authentic. I never used the word respectable, Julia said, her voice tightening further. You didn't need to, Kelly said. It was implied. The studio crew had gone still behind the cameras. Julia looked directly at Kelly. You know what? I've been doing this for decades. I know what works for me. If that bothers you, I don't know what to say. I'm not offended, Kelly replied, her eyes flashing. I'm shocked. Shocked that someone I've respected would come onto my show and basically tell me that the way I connect with my audience is wrong. I never said it was wrong, Julia said again, but her voice lacked strength. You absolutely did, Kelly answered. Maybe not in exact words, but the message was clear. You've been judging me ever since I asked you about using our platforms. Julia rose slightly in her chair, looking ready to bolt. This is exactly what I mean. Everything becomes dramatic. I mention privacy and suddenly I'm being accused of attacking you. Because it does feel personal, Kelly said. When someone comes onto your show and questions your entire approach to your job and your audience, yeah, it feels personal. The audience was completely frozen. Julia clutched the armrests. For a split second, it looked like she might actually leave. But she breathed in deeply, forcing herself to stay seated. Kelly, I think you're reading too much into this. I came as a guest, and now it feels like I'm being put on trial just for having a different perspective. You're not on trial, Kelly said, shaking her head. But you can't make broad comments about how others live their careers and expect no one to push back. I wasn't making broad comments, Julia insisted loudly. I answered your question. You asked how I stay grounded, and I said I keep boundaries. That's what works for me. But then you went further, Kelly pointed out. You brought up performative activism and oversharing. Those weren't just comments about yourself. Those were judgments. Julia gave a small, bitter laugh. So now I can't have an opinion on the industry? You can, Kelly said, frustration showing. But when your opinion includes dismissing others' choices, of course someone is going to challenge you. That isn't censorship. That's accountability. Accountability, Julia repeated with a thick layer of sarcasm. Interesting word. The audience gasped. That is unfair and you know it, Kelly said, sitting up straighter. I've had guests with every viewpoint imaginable, and I've never had this issue with any of them because they don't come in acting superior. Superior? Julia snapped. I'm acting superior. Kelly, you're the one interrogating me because I said I keep my life private. I'm not interrogating you, Kelly said, raising her voice despite trying not to. I'm talking to you. But clearly, you came in with tension already brewing. People like you, Julia said coolly. What does that mean? It means people who see value in being open, Kelly said. People who think vulnerability builds community. People who believe fans crave real connections. And there it is, Julia said. The idea that I'm fake because I value privacy. You're judging me too, Kelly said sharply. The difference, Julia replied, is that I'm not going around on other shows making my entire life part of the entertainment. Kelly finally stood. Get out. Julia froze. What? Get out of my studio, Kelly said, voice trembling but firm. If that's how you feel about me and what I do, you don't need to be here. Kelly, maybe we both went too far. Julia dried. No, Kelly cut her off. You don't get to insult me and then soften it when you realize you crossed a line. Julia looked pale. That's not what happened. It is, Kelly insisted. I admired you. But now? Not anymore. Kelly, you're being dramatic, Julia said weakly. Kelly laughed bitterly. You insulted everything I stand for. Julia opened her mouth, then shut it again. Finally she said, maybe we should take a break. No break, Kelly said. You need to leave. You're ending this, Julia demanded. Over a difference of opinion, over disrespect, Kelly corrected. Julia stood fully, chair scraping loudly. Fine. If that's how you want it. Before she left, she turned back. You know, Kelly, your whole relatable, every woman thing, it's just another performance. Kelly's eyes burned. Everything I've shared is real. Every struggle, every painful moment. I don't do it for ratings. I do it so people don't feel alone. What's foreign to me, Julia fired back, is this obsession with strangers' validation. You don't just share, you dissect. You broadcast. You invite the world into things that should stay private. That's not noble, Kelly. It's unhealthy. Gasps erupted. Kelly's voice turned ice cold. Leave. Right now. Gladly, Julia said, venom dripping from her words. This is one of the worst interviews I've ever done. Well, that makes two of us, Kelly said. But unlike you, I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. Julia paused, turning slowly. Is that a threat? It's the truth, Kelly replied steadily. I'm not hiding what happened. You'll look petty, Julia warned. Maybe, Kelly said. Or maybe people will see that I also have limits. You don't know anything about me, Julia said, voice shaking. Then why are you here? Kelly asked. Just to promote your movie? I came for a real conversation, Julia said, her voice cracking despite her efforts. And you turned it into an attack, Kelly answered. No, Julia snapped. You asked a loaded question. Your answer was condescending, Kelly replied simply. Julia stared. So now I'm out of touch? Part of the old guard? I think you're trapped in a mindset that doesn't work anymore, Kelly said. And I think you're so desperate for people's approval that you've confused authenticity with oversharing, Julia shot back. The two stood face to face, breathing hard. Finally, Kelly whispered, leave before one of us says something we can't undo. Julia hesitated, something almost soft flickering in her face. But it vanished. You're right, she said. I should go. This was a mistake. She walked toward the edge of the stage, heels sharp on the floor. Just before she stepped down, Kelly called out, Julia. Julia stopped. Kelly's voice was quiet but firm. For what it's worth, a broken bar, I really did admire you once. Julia's shoulders tensed. For a moment, it looked like she might turn and speak. But she didn't. She walked off the stage without another word.